Good morning, dearest friends. Welcome. It is Wednesday, hard to believe, August 24th, 27th and we are studying the entire Talmud, one page, one line at a time. Presently, it's Masechet Shabbat, chapter 19, 131a, Kuf Lamed Aleph, Amud. Well, actually, no, Kuf Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph, soon to be Amud Beis. We are talking broadly about Mila, circumcision, but that topic has brought us all over the map, all over the place. We're talking about Eruv, about Chatzeros, but the essential question was and will be, what exactly can be done in order to do the mitzvah of bris milah? We know that we are allowed to do Chalal Shabbos or to do otherwise not Shabbos activities, to do the act of circumcision, the act of the cutting, whatever else is part of that essential act. Milah is so important, bris milah is so important that a milah bismana, if it's the 8th day, it's Doicha Shabbos. The question that we're essentially parsing, though, is beyond the essential act of the cut, let's say, and whatever is immediately necessary. Are there other preparatory steps that can be done on Shabbos? And that is the subject of a machlokes of Tanoim, a disagreement between different stages of the Mishnah, as we saw in the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer says any hechsher of milah, any step that leads to the bris can be done on Shabbos. The bris is so important, we waive everything that's part of getting the bris to happen, including carrying the knife, fashioning the knife, etc., etc. Then we have Rabbi Akiva and others who say, no, the act of the cut can be done, even though it's a malacha, but everything else should have been thought of in advance and needs to be done prior to Shabbos. This includes not being allowed to carry a knife, even through what is a halachically, which is technically a private domain, but restricted by Chazal. And that was where we introduced the mavai, chatzer, roof, karfef, etc. We also had a middle opinion. We said it was Rabbi Meir, who says that you're allowed to carrying that's not biblically prohibited, but you cannot go in a public domain. We then kind of shifted the camera, and we are talking, and we're going to continue talking about and comparing Milah to other mitzvot, because it seems like Rabbi Eliezer had a blanket policy to say that hechsher mitzvah, the things that facilitate a mitzvah, can be done on Shabbos. So we're broadening the scope to see if this applies only to Shabbos, to circumcision, or to other mitzvahs as well. So we first probed the source of Rabbi Eliezer's, we first questioned the state, we questioned the breadth of Rabbi Eliezer's opinion, and now today, we're going to essentially quiz. We're going to interrogate Rabbi Eliezer to see his philosophy in other mitzvahs. Can you desecrate Shabbos to make them happen? And we're going to also ask him why. And so we're going to have a little bit of a survey of different mitzvot that are so important they are done on Shabbos. And we're going to ask the question, Rabbi Eliezer, do you allow also non-essential, or I should say not the act of the mitzvah itself, but things that lead to it? Are those allowed or not? And if yes, why? And so that's basically going to be the framework of the next several lines of the Gemara. So again, we're now probing Rabbi Elazar's attitude towards hechsher mitzvah, steps that lead to a mitzvah. If they can be done on Shabbos, is it exclusively circumcision or is it more broad? That's going to be our discussion. We started it yesterday and we're going to continue it today. So that's in a nutshell where we are heading. I want to mention once again, it was last week, Shmuel ben Yisrael Moshe Alevi, whose yahrzeit was last week. I want to mention the good health and well-being of all of the members of our Chabura. And I do also want to mention the name of Malka Basimcha. She should have a complete and speedy, miraculous refuah, Yisrael, and praying for only good news and wonderful news for our community, but especially for our Chabura. Let me share the screen. And while I do so, if anyone had any important comments to my intro, I welcome that. Dr. Hammer, go ahead.
Not important, but just anecdotally, it happens that my sister should be well. All of her 3 sons were born on Shabbos, and those were the 3 times my brother-in-law talks about that he rode on Shabbos. Today, in Teaneck, New Jersey, there's I wouldn't call it a fight, but strong issues regarding a Hatzalah from Bergen County wanting to take over function of the Teaneck Volunteer Ambulance Corps functions, and which they've been doing for 80 years, and which has a significant, very significant number of Orthodox participants, both male and female. So they're fighting over who should be able to have the experience of being of driving an ambulance on Shabbos. Interesting.
Wait, I'm a little confused. Hold on. So there's a fight over who are the two options?
TNEC Volunteer Ambulance Corps, which is a voluntary organization.
So there's a highly Jewish organization. There's a high representation of Jews in a broader
of Orthodox Jews, and a new category of Hatzalah trying to get into, and
I hear you. Hatzalah should
only have one. By the way, when you call 911 and someone's having a problem, the TNEC Volunteer Ambulance Corps is then contacted. Okay, so it's a serious.
I can imagine it is a serious matter.
And there are serious, actually very serious, important issues, social issues, where the non-Jewish and non-observant community has interaction and tremendous respect for people. It's like Zaka, for people coming wearing kippot, maybe even with the tzitzis hanging out or something, but usually just modern people who are now interacting and helping to save lives, whether it's on Shabbos or on Yantif or any time. And it's not, they're mixed together with a group, others. So it's, and one of the issues with the new group that's trying to get in is, number one, they're outsiders. Number two, they're only males. Number three, they want to have their own number, whatever. But
right, I can imagine.
The Rabbanim, the Orthodox Rabbanim, sent out a letter last week. I'm sure Menachem is aware of all of this. I hope so. Supporting the importance of the TNEC Volunteer Ambulance Corps.
Wow.
Yeah. So interesting.
Wow.
Anyway, sorry for the.
No. Yeah. Wow. All right, we'll take a look. Now so here we're going to start. This is a perfect place to start. I mean, you wouldn't know it based on this word, but it's actually a new conversation. L'ma'oti mai. The Gemara, like in middle of, out of the blue, says, what are we excluding? So let's read Rashi. He reminds us what's going on. The statement of Rabbi Yochanan previously, which was, Loi lakol amar Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer did not give a blanket license. He doesn't allow every hechsher mitzvah to be done on Shabbos. L'me'uti, what is he coming to exclude? L'me'uti hai machshirim asi d'leidache Shabbos. So now we're going to have to identify where is Rabbi Eliezer's exception? Where does he not allow, preparation to be done on Shabbos? And so now we're going to begin our survey of other mitzvahs, familiar mitzvahs. And Rabbi Eliezer's opinion, which is quite lenient about overriding Shabbos to bring those mitzvahs to fulfillment. Maybe he's telling us that you're not allowed to do hechsher mitzvah. You're not allowed to do malachis that are not part of the essential observance of the mitzvah, but facilitate the mitzvah. We're talking about lulav. And Rashi, right away, although this is really on a latter stage of the Gemara, what would that be? Maybe we're talking about cutting the lulav off the palm tree, or maybe plucking an esrog. The mitzvah is not plucking the esrog. The mitzvah is bringing the four kinds together. But you can't make the bracha on the da'arba minim without first plucking the esrog off a tree. So suppose you don't have an esrog that's not plucked. Could you pluck it on Shabbos? Maybe Rabbi Eliezer would say you cannot pluck a lulav or esrog on Shabbos. Maybe he's excluding lulav and saying you can't be mechal Shabbos. That's not so. V'hatanya, there's a brisa which explicitly shows us Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. Lulav, v'chol machshirav, a lulav, and all the steps to bring it to action. Doichen es Shabbos, they all are doichen Shabbos. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. That is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, who allows a person to desecrate Shabbos to come to the mitzvah of lulav. So that's not it.
But
Ella,
you
maybe.
don't bench on Shabbos. Why should it be acceptable?
Oh, good question. Good question.
Well,
Well, because midoraita, you did bench. It was a gzeira of Rabbah to not bench lulav on Shabbos. So now we're going back to the biblical status, which is you do lulav and esrog on Shabbos. And that's a very good, astute question. Shkoyach for that. Ella, l'muti sukkah. Maybe we're talking about sukkah. That can't be either, because Hatanya, sukkah, v'chol machshireha, the mitzvah of sukkah, and all of the things that facilitate the mitzvah of sukkah. Shabbos, that too pushes aside Shabbos. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabbi Eliezer really seems to have a consistent attitude that you're allowed to be Mechalel Shabbos to lead to a mitzvah. The Ella Lamotei Matzah, maybe it's the mitzvah of eating matzah. I imagine that would mean baking the matzah or kneading the flour or whatever else. The Tanya, the Brisa teaches matzah. Rabbi Eliezer also says that matzah and all the steps to get us matzah on the table can be done on Shabbos. Okay, the Ella, maybe what are we saying is not allowed? Shofar. Maybe you're not allowed to do the steps that lead to having a shofar on Shabbos. Tanya, we have another Brisa that says shofar, chol machshirav, the shofar and all the steps that lead us to getting a kosher shofar. So I imagine we mean cutting the edge of the shofar and removing the cartilage or drilling through to have a hole, or I don't know, whatever step, or carrying. So we see Rabbi Eliezer, item by item. You're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos to have a lulav, not just to do the mitzvah, but to bring to have a lulav. You're allowed to Mechal Shabbos to have your sukkah. You're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos to have matzah. You're allowed to Mechal Shabbos to blow shofar, to have a shofar that you can blow. So what are we excluding? Amar Rav Ada bar Ava. Rav Ada bar Ava is finally going to resolve this big mystery. Limaote tzitzis, l'talisai umezuza lepischai. We are talking about that you're not allowed to create tzitzis on a talis, tie them, which of course is not allowed on Shabbos. Umezuza lepischai, and you're also not allowed to knock in the mezuzah in your doorway on Shabbos. Indeed, there's a brisa that affirms that the case. Although the Chachamim and Rabbi Eliezer argue in a number of matters, the brisa clarifies Vishavim. Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim agree. She'im siyetz talito, if a person affixes tzitzis in the traditional manner or not traditional manner on his talis, which is tying and wrapping, etc., or v'asa mezuzah lepischai, he did the steps of affixing a mezuzah on his door. Shu chayiv, he is chayiv. Does anybody know what he is chayiv? Who remembers from long ago, earlier in Masechah Shabbos, when we say that a person is chayiv, what do we usually mean? Chayiv chatas. He has desecrated Shabbos to the point where if it was unintentional, he would bring us an offering.
Well, the difference, the way I see it between the different cases is the first batch is time related.
Did you by any chance peek further in the Gemara, or is your mind aligned?
I couldn't peek because you're in control of the Gemara, so.
Okay, I'm sorry. Peek. So, Dr. Stamler, your mind is already attuned to the nuance that our Gemara is also going to observe in a moment. So, Yashar Koyach for that. So, Dr. Stamler says there's a strong difference between all the other mitzvahs that were mentioned and these two. All the other mitzvahs have a specific date and time where they need to be done. So we feel the urgency. I think that's what Dr. Stamler is saying. You can't push it aside or you just won't be able to do that mitzvah. But a mezuzah and talis or tzitzis, those are things that can always be done. And therefore, you tell me you wake up just now that you want to do it on Shabbos of all days. It reminds me kind of something that happens in my house, and maybe it's happened in your house or your children's homes, where all night the kids have, or whatever, the supper is served, and there's unlimited supply of water in the home, but mysteriously, once it is already bedtime, the children wake up with urgent pangs of hunger and an absolutely life-threatening case of thirst. And so you have to wake up now that it's not allowed, or now that you're supposed to be in bed. And so Dr. Stalmer, I think, is saying a similar thing. You woke up now that it's Shabbos. Now you urgently need to tie tzitzis. You have 6 days in the week to do it. And so Dr. Stalmer says that there's a clear difference. And the Gemara is going to ask this question. And along the way, we're going to mention Dr. Stalmer's svara over here. My time, what is the reason? Why would Rabbi Elazar agree to not allow you to tie it tzitzis, or not allow you to knock in a mezuzah? Amar Rav Yosef, lefi she'ein kavua lahem zman. There is no set time for these two mitzvahs, and therefore we'll cry a river of borscht, but we're not going to let you make your tzitzis or mezuzah on Shabbos. Amar li Abaye, Abaye says, hold on, not so simple. Adarabba, on the contrary, I could make you a counter argument. If it is a timeless mitzvah, it's ever important. It should be even more important. But you should have to affix the mezuzah. Called shaita v'shaita zimnehu. Whatever time you're going to wake up and say, I want to make the tzitzis, now it's mitzvah time. Rashi. Kivan sheyesh leitalis b'chol yom shemasha. Meaning that he has this garment. Whenever he does not wear the talis, he is transgressing the failure to affix tzitzis. Even if it's on his shelf. Well, kufsa literally means a box. It's away. He's not actually going to wear it. So he's not going to do an avera wearing tzitzis, a talis that doesn't have tzitzis. But he is failing to do the opportunity of a mitzvah saseh. Every day there's this urgency, even Shabbos. So the Gemara tweaks the answer. Actually, doesn't tweak the answer. It gives a different answer, which this is surprising to me. Because Dr. Stalmer, my instinct, my inclination is to embrace Rabbi Yosef's opinion, which, by the way, Rabbi Yosef agrees with us. But in case you're going to listen to Abaye and say, oh, wow, maybe I should, Dafke have to do it on Shabbos. So he says, you know what? You have another alternative. It's so urgent. You can't live in a home. You can't have a home that doesn't have a mezuzah. How urgent is it to you? Is it really, really important? How important? Well, you know, there is another solution short of putting up a mezuzah. You know what you could do? If it's really, really, really bothering you that you own a home that doesn't have a mezuzah, well, you could declare it ownerless. And now there's no problem.
I have a question.
So if it's so important to you, you would have taken care of it.
I have a question.
Really bothering you on Shabbos? Okay, make it ownerless. There's a solution. Rashi.
I have a question.
Now it's not yours, and now you have no obligation to put tzitzis on the talis, to put a mezuzah on the home. I read it to you in one way, a little bit of a cynical kind of retort. Is it really so important? But I can make the case that this is more of a sincere Gemara saying, yeah, listen, there's a solution. Because there is another solution, we're not going to let you be Mechal Shabbos. But either way, I found this Gemara to be very interesting and a fascinating insight into human nature, or at least a possible insight into human nature.
Rabbi, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Ali.
So I have a friend.
Okay.
And his mezuzah is on the wrong side of the door.
Again?
I have a friend, his mezuzah is on the wrong side of the door. We told him the whole entire summer to move it to the other side. He even knows, he goes, I'm just renting the house. I'm not here. I'm here for the summer. It's not my house.
Okay.
I told him the mezuzah has to go to the other side of the door. Even the rabbi came and told him the other side of the door, and he never changed it.
Okay.
What happens now?
What happens?
I don't know.
Should we zap him with lightning? Should we arrest him?
I don't know. Just saying, the mezuzah is on the left side instead of the right side.
He should endeavor to correct it. He should call his landlord and say, I'm going to do you an upgrade. I'm going to upgrade your home. I'm going to get you your mezuzah. You have a mezuzah, you care, but now it's going to be even better because it's going to be in the right place. That's what I would do. And then I would call my rabbi, and if my rabbi wasn't available, I would Google Chabad, and I'd call the Chabadnik over, and I'd say, listen, we're Sephardic. Don't put the mezuzah on a slant, but we can get it fixed. So,
you know, even though I'm Sephardic, in my house in Jersey, my father put the mezuzah on the slant.
You must have had an Ashkenaz rabbi help him put it up.
No, in New Jersey, everything is on a slant.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Anyways, so hold on. I just wanted to take one. Hold on. So the Rashba makes an interesting observation, which I think I already preemptively shared an explanation based on Rashi's language, but I want to read him for a second. The Gemara says, we're not going to let you put tzitzis on your talis on Shabbos because you could just make it ownerless and you're not going to have a problem. And then we read Rashi, and Rashi says, even when you're not wearing tzitzis, you have a mitzvah to put them on, not because you can't wear them, because you have a positive commandment to put on tzitzis on a garment. So he says, the Gemara should have just said, you know why you can't put tzitzis on your talis on Shabbos? Because you just don't wear the talis. And as we know, although the Maisa we put on a talis every day, there's no biblical obligation to put on a talis. The biblical obligation is if you have a four-cornered garment to attach strings. So much so that there are Jews who purposely round off certain garments to avoid possibly needing to put on a talis. And so this is the Rashba's question. The Gemara could have given us a lot less of a facetious answer. The Gemara could have given us a lot more reasonable of an answer. You don't have tzitzis, don't wear it. Sebrent nicht, wait 12 hours. So Pirish Rashi Zal, Dafilu Munach Bekufsa of Rabase. Rashi explains that even though you're not wearing it, you're failing to do a mitzvah. The Einim Mechover, this is a shver, this is a problem. The Imishum Ha, Asya Deloi Kilchesa. The Klikufsa Ein Chayav Mitzitzis, Lav Chayvas Monahu. You don't have to put on tzitzis on a garment that you're not wearing. The obligation isn't that your talis should have tzitzis. The obligation is the talis you wear should have tzitzis. So basically, because of this issue, maybe that's why it doesn't say. The time of the talis shall have kir pater min tzitzis. And then he goes on and probes the reason behind why a talis that's ownerless doesn't need tzitzis. So the bottom line is, this remains an interesting and thought-provoking comment of the Gemara. All right, let's see a little more. Now, the Gemara is going to revisit every one of the instances that we saw in a brisa that Rabbi Eliezer says you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos in order to bring that mitzvah to fruition. Lulav, Esrig, Shofar, Matzah. We're going to go through all of them. And we're going to engage in a little bit of a familiar Talmudic analysis of these mitzvahs and to understand exactly why he permits it to be done on Shabbos. So we're going to see a few psukim. We're going to talk a little bit about the ideas of the mitzvah and the details of the mitzvah. So let's take a look. Omar Mar. Lulav v'chol machshirin doichenes Shabbos tiver Elazar. The brisa we quoted previously says that lulav and everything that leads us to it can be done on Shabbos. We know that Rabbi Elazar, huh? Does Rabbi Elazar have a source? Where does he get this assertion from? Maybe he infers it from the mitzvah of Omer and Shtei Alechem, which were two mitzvahs we mentioned yesterday, which we said you're allowed to do on Shabbos. Or he at least believes you're allowed to do it on Shabbos, based on his reading of the Psukim. Remember, we have an extra Hayom. Shekain Soyrich Gevoya. I'm sorry. Ime Omer Shtei Alechem. You can't learn it from Omer Shtei Alechem. Why? Shekain Soyrich Gevoya. The Omer and the Shtei Alechem are communal and part of the Beis Hamikdash Shemayim rituals. They're part of Jewish essential rituals. That can't be compared to Lulav, which is an individual mitzvah. Let's see if Rabbi Steinsaltz explains it the way I did. Yeah. These are for temple services to Hashem on high, connected to sacrificial services, so they can be done on Shabbos. Whereas Lulav is a private mitzvah. So a waiver extended only to temple rite is not going to extend to a person's private observance. Elam Arkra, rather there's a pasuk. The pasuk says the word Bayom, on that day. You want to know which pasuk? Here we go. Ulekachtem lachem bayom harishayin, and we already have, or we have several references to the pasuk bayom harishayin mikakodesh yalachem, etc. And so says the Gemara, bayom, it uses the word on the day. Bayom afilu b'Shabbos, to tell us that even on the day of Shabbos, L'kachtem lechem bayom harishayin. That word bayom tells us that it is an essential. It has to be on that first day, even if that day is Shabbos. My hilchasa. The Gemara now wants to know which malacha exactly are we talking about. Rashi. Lahai v'afilu b'Shabbos. Which mitzvah are we talking about? Ine malataltal. We're talking about carrying kidamash makar lekicha. It can't be that we're permitting carrying, because let's see Rabbi Steinsaltz here for a moment. The prohibition of muktzah, if we're talking about muktzah, the Torah added a word to teach us that you're allowed to carry muktzah. That can't be. You know why? Because muksa is only midrabanan, according to the preponderance of the shitot about muksa. Rather, Hayom is teaching us, meaning, I'm sorry, let me back up and explain. What can be done on Shabbos? Are we saying the actual mitzvah? No, of course you could do the mitzvah on Shabbos. There's nothing wrong midaraisa to handle muksa. Rather, it's coming to teach us that the steps that lead us to having a lulav, even biblically prohibited, can be done on Shabbos for the mitzvah of lulav. Rashi elam achshirav isur deraisahu. For example, cutting the lulav off the tree. So Rabbi Elazar says you're allowed to do any malacha that leads you to have a lulav and esrog on Shabbos. And the Chachamim say no. The Chachamim have a problem. Chachamim, you say we cannot do the steps that facilitate the mitzvah of lulav. Why not? I have a pasuk that says Hayom. It can be done on the day. We're doiche Shabbos. Gemara says no. The Chachamim have a different understanding of the special halacha that the word Hayom is introducing. The Rabbanan say Hayom is not teaching me about allowing to do hechsher mitzvah on Shabbos. We need the word Hayom to teach us. No, it's in the daytime and not at nighttime. As we know, the mitzvah of lulav and esrog is done by day, not by night. So the Chachamim say that Hayom can't teach me to desecrate Shabbos. Where says, okay, Rabbi Elazar. Now, how are you going to respond to that? You told me that the word Hayom teaches me that you're allowed to cut the lulav off the tree on Shabbos. Well, no, the Chachamim have an important halacha that we need to know. The halacha that lulav is only done in the daytime, and so therefore the word Bayom is not available to teach us about. Or how do you know that you're only allowed to do lulav and esrog in the daytime? So Rabbi Elazar says, I have another pasuk. I have the word Bayom to teach me that it's done even on Shabbos. And then I have the word, I'm sorry, one second, doctor. Celebrate, rejoice before Hashem 7 days. Yomim v'loy leilos. What does it mean to have simcha? Of course, it means a mitzvah, because what brings simcha? Mitzvah. And so the mitzvah that you rejoice 7 days, the lulav and esrog, is only done yomim, in the days and not the nights. So Rabbi Elazar says, I have two words, hayom, one to teach me the lulav and esrog can be done on Shabbos, and the other to teach me that it's done only in the daytime. Dr. Hammer?
A sukkah's question. My understanding is that there's no mitzvah to build a sukkah, and therefore you could have a guy build it completely, etc., etc. The question is, so whether you're here and you have a hurricane or you have a snowstorm up there, it gets collapsed on Friday night, and you wake up Shabbos, and you have everything's on the floor, schach, the walls and everything.
Right.
So the question is, can you forget about getting somebody else? Can you build that? Build that sukkah so that it's that you could. Yeah.
Really, I want to defer for a few lines, but I will just say like this: according to Rabbi Eliezer, you should be able to build it yourself. That's not halacha l'maisa, but according to Rabbi Eliezer, you should be allowed to build it yourself.
Rabbi,
hold on. Is this about our Gemara or to build upon Dr. Hammer?
No, on Shabbos. I'm asking on Shabbos.
Right, on Shabbos. I'm sorry, I meant on Shabbos. Rebberal?
Rabbi, I wouldn't pass over so fast I mean, you can't have simcha at night. We just accept that. Why not misameach at night? When do you make a l'chaim?
No,
I
no, no.
mean,
Listen
Chabad
carefully.
in the morning, but us guys
Listen,
at night.
listen carefully. Listen very carefully. We didn't say you're not allowed to have simcha at night. Rabbi Eliezer interprets the verse that says you rejoice 7 days to be describing a specific facet of rejoicing. Which facet? The mitzvah of lulav and esrog. Therefore, Rabbi Eliezer infers that the facet of simcha that we're describing, which is the mitzvah of lulav and esrog, is only done by night. But indeed, it is fascinating and actually telling and real to observe that the Torah and Judaism really believes that there's an incredible simcha that's associated with a mitzvah. And therefore, we can, with a serious, straight face, with all sincerity, interpret, according to Rabbi Eliezer, the word, the pasuk was smachtim lefnei Hashem, to be describing a mitzvah. Now, we're in the middle of a sentence, so let's see if the Chachamim have this interpretation. Rabbanan, the Chachamim now are confronted with a challenge. You don't believe we can be Mechal Shabbos to build a to get a lulav, because Bayom teaches us it's only in the daytime. Now, what are you going to do with the Smachtim Lifnei Hashem Shivas Yamim? Surely that should force you to agree that you could do a lulav on Shabbos. So no, it's tied up for another limud. Because I would suppose that we should compare lulav and sukkah, that both mitzvahs should be done only in the daytime. I'm sorry, both should be done in day and night. This pasuk teaches me dafka that lulav is done only in the daytime, but unlike sukkah, and that's why it says that's what the Chacham uses to teach us the distinction between lulav and sukkah. So the Gemara now asks another question. Okay, we have the extra bayom to teach me that lulav, according to the Rebbe Elazar, can be done in the daytime. Well, that should be enough. That should make now settled science, settled halacha. You can do mitzvahs on Shabbos because lulav will open the can of worms, as Rebbe would say, and now we know for all the other scenarios. That's the Gemara's question. Use the extra word of lulav, and all the other instances where we say your Daicha Shabbos can all be inferred from lulav, and therefore the Torah can now save a few words from the fact that the Torah brings a special added word. By Omer, Shtei Alechem, by lulav, and the others we're going to see soon. I understand that there's something that makes each one different from the other. What is the conceptual difference that sets lulav apart from the other mitzvahs? That here is an important difference. Malululav shekintaon arba minim. Lulav is distinct, and I want to read Rabbi Steinsaltz here. The mitzvah of lulav, where it says "Ulakachtem lechem b'yom rishon," has something unique, which is that it needs to have the other three parts alongside with it. Unlike the other mitzvahs, which are all just the essential action enumerated in the pasuk. So because lulav has such a distinct character, it therefore cannot be used to prove or to establish halachic precedent for other mitzvahs. This, to be honest, I struggle with this distinction, because I always imagine that when we're talking about the mitzvah of lulav, we're actually talking about the mitzvah of arba minim. Whereas the way we're reading this now, and I think Rabbi Steinsaltz agrees with my interpretation here. What is unique about lulav? That it needs 4 kinds. So therefore, it cannot be compared to the other mitzvahs, which are only their essential material. Again, I'm just being clear over here. I'm concerned. I'm uncomfortable. Let's first take a look at Tosfos, although the question is not exactly the same. Shekenton Arbamin. Afagav the Omer Shtelechem Nami Mivini Mom Kvasam Yain Lenisach Hashem Lenachas. So what are you talking about? Every mitzvah has added ingredients. When you bring the Omer, there are other accompanying things that are brought to the base of English. So maybe there's something very much alike. Here, let's read this again. Take a look in the Torah. When you bring the Omer, when you bring the Shtei Halechem, there's animals and wine and oil that comes along. So just like lulav is accompanied with other items, says Tosfos, well, Omer Shtei Halechem is the same. So Gemara says, Shani dal minim, the lulav sh'ma'akvin zez. No, there's a difference. The Shtei Halechem, if you would not have the sheep, it would still be kosher. But by lulav and esrog, to pick up a lulav itself, you don't have the hadasim, the ravis, and the esrog with it, you've done nothing. As the Gemara indeed says, hakvasim akvim la'isleimer la'shtelachem v'hainu ton darmim she'ein mitzvahs lulav kalal b'loy dalmim. The difference is that a lulav on its own is nothing. So this is an important taste just to balance out and to clarify the distinction. Based on this Gemara's question, I wonder if Rabbi Eliezer will allow you to pluck. I'm sure someone asked this. Based on this, would Rabbi Eliezer allow you to pluck an esrog on Shabbos? I don't know. That's actually very interesting. I had not understood the Gemara this way. I have to make a note for myself to follow up on that because I don't want to take your time now. But hold on. Das Lazar im All right, I'll take a look afterwards. So now the Gemara is going to get to Dr. Hammer's comment. Sukkah, Belazar says a sukkah and all that it entails can be done on Shabbos. We know Rabbi Elazar, huh? How does Rabbi Elazar know this? What is his biblical source? It can't be inferred from the Omer and the Shtei Halechem. Those are temple rituals. Sukkah is private. Lulav, if it's connected to lulav, if you would try to infer it from lulav, no, we cannot. The lulav needs 3 other kinds to be kosher. The sukkah does not need the other 3 kinds. Rashi, how would you learn it from lulav? By having a deep comparison, because lulav is very similar. Basically, because there are a number of things in common with lulav, you would think to compare lulav to sukkah. The Gemara says no, because there's a strong and important distinction. Ella, where do I know that you can do all the steps to facilitate a sukkah according to Rabbi Eliezer? Remember, we don't follow him halacha l'maisa. This is all a probe in the theory of Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. Ella Gemar Shivas Yamim Lulav, the mitzvah of lulav uses the word Shivas Yamim. Malahalon Machshir of Deichnes Shabbos, just as the fact, there's the word Shivas Yamim by lulav, but there's the word Shivas Yamim by sukkah, and so the extra Shivas Yamim of lulav teach us that we can be Deiches Shabbos just like this. Lulav Af Kanami Machshir of Deichnes Shabbos.
Rabbi.
Yes.
I'm surprised that we talk about the lulav by itself. I mean, the lulav could be kosher. You don't have an esrog, you can't do the mitzvah. It's a mitzvah of the 2 together. So I'm surprised nobody mentioned something that it's only half the problem. I don't know if my question is clear. It's not a mitzvah of the lulav by itself.
Your question is my question.
So that makes it all right now.
No, that's the question. I just spent a few minutes explaining that. I always thought that when we said lulav, we mean the 4 minim, but from the Gemara, it's clear that we're only talking dafka about lulav. And that led me to jot down a question, as you may recall, which is, according to Rabbi Elazar, would you be allowed to do hechsher mitzvah would you allow to do hechsher mitzvah would you be allowed to be Mechal Shabbos to cut hadassim, aravis, or a lulav, an esrog? That was my question. So yeah, it's a very good question. We think alike. So the Gemara says, why does the Torah need to add extra words by lulav? Can't we automatically assume that they are having common? So the Gemara says no. There's a very important distinction between lulav and sukkah, which makes us need extra words in the context of lulav sukkah by itself. Because the sukkah is a mitzvah day and night, which sets it strongly apart from shtei halechem, omer, and lulav, and therefore it needs to have its own mention. Now the Gemara moves on to the next mitzvah, matzah. Rabbi Elazar says matzah v'chol machshireha doichenes Shabbos Rabbi Elazar. Elazar says you have to bake matzah. You can do whatever you need to get to matzah. How does he know that? What is the biblical source? We know that Rabbi Elazar we cannot compare matzah to the temple mitzvahs. We cannot compare it to lulav. Why? Matzah doesn't have 4 minim. Sukkah and sukkah shekein noiheges. The mitzvah of sukkah is day and night. Whereas matzah, when is the mitzvah of matzah?
Passover.
When on Passover?
Night.
Only night. Very good. Shkoyach, Rashi.
So here's my question.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Here's my question.
Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Rashi. Imi sukkah shekein noiheges yamim. V'lo matzah laila harishayin chayva v'suloi. Matzah is only a nighttime mitzvah. And so it's not fair. It's not right to compare sukkah to matzah, or I should say matzah to sukkah. Tosfos. Really briefly, hold on. All right. Tosfos is interesting. But let's not go there. Eli, what was your question?
So my question is, matzah is for Passover. Lulav and etrog is for Sukkot. Why do people have matzah during the year?
Personal decision. It's not illegal to eat matzah during the year. It's just not a mitzvah.
You have to be different from the whole year.
What are you premising that comment? I'm just trying to understand.
I'm just asking, why does someone have matzah during the year if it's supposed to be just for Passover?
No, it doesn't say that matzah is only for Passover. You have to eat matzah on Passover. You don't have to eat matzah during the year, but you're allowed to eat matzah during the year, with the exception, Lamaisa, we don't eat matzah for a month before Pesach, so that it's a fresh, exciting flavor. But if you like matzah, and Eli, your question, you can get sued. Strites and Manischewitz, they don't like the premise of your question very much. Are you suggesting
Also,
Jews should buy matzah during the year? No.
You can walk around with the lulav and etrog during the year too. You can make a block on it, but you can walk around with the lulav and etrog during the year too.
And you could even drink wine and not make kiddush. You
they would think it's crazy if you're holding lulav and etrog in the year.
Hold on, I want to give Eli a little credit. Eli, yeah, I kind of totally rejected your question, but you're asking I think I know where the question is coming from, because I believe, and again, I'm not well versed in Sephardic halacha, but I believe Sephardic Jews don't make hamaitzi on matzah during the year. Is that correct?
Correct.
What bracha do you make on matzah during the year?
Alechat matzah.
No.
Oh, hamotz. Okay, yeah, I got it.
No, hold on. During the year, what bracha do you make on matzah?
It's donut, probably.
It's donut.
Mizonot. Like I'm making a cracker. Yeah.
So you're basically saying that what you're saying is that matzah doesn't belong during the year. But the point is, it's not a mitzvah.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Isn't it a mitzvah to eat matzah every single day of Passover?
Let's not. Our Gemara is clearly saying no, and that is the case. There are Jews who are makbid to eat matzah every day of Pesach, but it is certainly not a clear and straightforward biblical obligation to eat matzah every day of Pesach. Only the first night if you live in Israel, and the first 2 nights if you live in the diaspora, and even then the second night is probably.
I want to show you something. You see this? This is the matzah shmor. I keep it for the year, right next to my desk.
Beautiful. Let's finish with these last 4 lines. Elagamar chamisha asar chamisha asar. So how do we know that matzah you can be, according to Rabbi Elazar, you can be mechal Shabbos to have matzah, because there's the extra chamisha asar here, which creates us a gzera shava, chamisha asar, which therefore teaches us malahala machshira doichenes Shabbos, just as on Sukkot the mitzvahs can be doiches Shabbos, avkan machshira doichenes Shabbos. Similarly, you're allowed to be Machal Shabbos to have matzah. So the Gemara asks, why do we need Gzer Shava? Just write that you are Deicha Shabbos for matzah, and all of the mitzvahs would be inferred. There's something that sets matzah apart from all the other mitzvahs. Matzah is the only mitzvah that we've mentioned so far, which the degree of obligation is equal to men and women. Men and women both need to eat matzah, whereas other mitzvot, this is not the case. Let's read Rashi, B'nashim, K'vanashim. As the Gemara in Pesachim says, Lo tochal alav chametz shivas yamim kol sheyesh lehem v'al tochal chametz yesh lehem b'kum achol matzah. Whatever person can eat chametz has to eat matzah. B'nashim isnu b'val tochal chametz. The women have to not eat chametz. The chol mitzvah lo yisaseh bein shazman grama bein she'ein azman grama. Lafuki sukkah lulav l'lisnu b'nashim mitzvah say shazman grama. Long story short, I want to give you a fast summary. Women are typically exempt biblically from doing a mitzvah that is time constrained. Women do not have to do any mitzvah that is specific time. Which mitzvah? A mitzvah's aseh. They don't have to do a positive command, but they are responsible with every negative command. They cannot do things that the Torah prohibits. In the context of Pesach, it says that whoever can't eat chametz on Pesach must eat matzah. And so therefore there's something unique about matzah from other holidays that women are biblically obligated. Now, Lamaisa today, many women endeavor to eat in the sukkah, certainly in the Ashkenazic world. And in certain kihilot, women also make a bracha on the Lulav Esrog, many. But in the Sephardic community, and particularly those who follow the Piskei Dinim of Rabbi Avad Yosef, they do not allow women to do Lulav Esrog. So that's one of the interesting things where Sephardic women are either shocked, excited, or horrified that if they go to a sukkah of their neighbor that doesn't follow the psak of Rabbi Avad Yosef, they might have the opportunity to bench Lulav Esrog, but it's not a biblical obligation, it's a mitzvah, and that they certainly can be encouraged and should be encouraged, at least from my perspective. But Midoraita, they do not have that obligation. And again, it's about not encumbering women with the mitzvahs aseh shazman grama. And there you have it. We're going to pause right here, but we're not done yet. We still need to probe a few more mitzvahs that Rabbi Elazar says you're allowed to do on Shabbos. We're going to do shofar, and we're going to go to the actual brisk conversation. So, dear friends, hold on. Thank you for joining us today. I hope to see everybody tomorrow. Gesundheit and Freilich. This concludes the formal discussion of today. I'm going to hit stop share, but of course, any questions or comments.
Yeah, Rabbi,
yes.
I was thinking that something that we learned could help us understand a practice we have today, and that is security on Shabbos in a synagogue for services. Someone could say there's not a danger right away. What excuse do you use? And I think our mission about the pregnant woman would help us that preventative is sufficient reason. Not every woman has difficulty in childbirth, and yet we're allowed to take precautions.
All right, we'll have to probe that further. I need to give that some thought, but very interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Hammer?
I just want to know, Ellie, do you have any mashka? You have any in your desk besides the shmura matzah? You have something to drink to wash it down? I mean,
yeah, of course. I have iced coffee.
Oh, okay. It's a good start.
A bissel vodka.
Bissel vodka. No, I have crackers.
Plum.
I have a picture of my father.
Plum liqueur, maybe.
Good. Sounds good.